In this video, we explore the tragic and shocking case of Alana Brooks, a young woman whose final days were filled with fear she never spoke aloud. But the real horror? She didn't know the person she feared most was standing right beside her. What pushed a quiet, polite man into a spiral of control, obsession, and, finally, unthinkable violence? How did a love story turn into a nightmare hidden behind deleted messages, secret recordings, and a trail of digital lies? Tonight, we unravel the truth piece by piece. And just when you think you understand what happened, a final voice memo from Alana will change everything. Brace yourself. This isn't just a case. It's a warning. Welcome to Unforgotten Crimes. Thanks to all my viewers and subscribers for your support. Stay tuned for daily true crime updates. Don't forget to subscribe. It begins with a grainy, monochrome frame, timestamp 11:42 p.m. Alana Brooks steps out of her quiet apartment complex in a light jacket, keys in hand, moving with the unhurried rhythm of someone who has walked this path 100 times. The documentary narration describes her as a young woman living an ordinary life in a town that rarely made headlines. And yet the tone makes it clear. This is the start of something that will haunt the community forever. The screen freezes on her final glance toward the parking lot. A slow zoom pulls viewers into the moment, lingering just long enough to feel the weight of it. Then the narration shifts, contrasting the stillness with flashes of Alana's day earlier. Sunlight on her coffee mug, her laughter during a video call with a friend, a saved voice note where she talks about finally feeling like life is falling into place. These fragments paint a picture of a bright, gentle 24-year-old with plans, routines, and a sense of hope that now feels unbearably fragile. Cut to an interview room. David Hale sits stiffly, hands clasped, answering questions with careful politeness. He talks about Alana needing some air that night, insisting she wasn't upset. His voice is steady, but his eyes flick away at odd moments. The narration subtly calls attention to it. The too even breathing, the smile that doesn't reach his eyes, inviting the audience to wonder whether this is grief, shock, or something far more complicated. Back outside Alana's apartment, the camera returns to the dark walkway where she vanished from sight. The town is quiet, almost hollow, as if holding its breath with the viewers. Something unspoken hangs in the air, the kind of tension that only grows when the truth is missing. The scene fades as detectives step forward, somber. They reveal that Alana's phone went offline exactly 6 minutes after she appeared on camera. The documentary transitions from the tense revelation about Alana's phone to a softer, almost luminous tone, as if stepping back into her world before fear ever touched it. Her co-workers appear on screen first, sitting in the break room where she used to leave cheerful sticky notes. They describe her as gentle but driven, someone who stayed late not because she had to, but because she believed in doing things right. One coworker recalls how Alana talked about returning to college to finish her communications degree. She just wanted to build something stable. The woman says, her voice trembling. The narration guides viewers through Alana's morning routine. The slow pour of coffee into her chipped blue mug, the quiet music she played while fixing her hair, the soft humming she did without realizing anyone could hear. These visuals are intercut with snippets of voice notes she recorded for herself, little reminders like, buy groceries, followed by larger confessions such as, I really hope I'm making the right choices this year. Her text messages flash on screen next, warm, sweet, occasionally anxious. Hopeful dreams woven with quiet uncertainties. Then comes the first intimate glimpse into her private fears. A page from her diary appears in delicate handwriting. I don't know why David gets so tense when I have plans. Maybe I'm imagining it. The narration pauses, letting viewers sit with the uncomfortable implication. It is subtle but unmistakable, the earliest sign of something tightening around her life. Her best friend, Marcy, recalls how Alana sometimes hesitated before answering calls from David, brushing off her unease with a forced smile. She'd laugh it off, but it wasn't real laughter, Marcy says, eyes lowered. As the camera returns to the dimly lit hallway of Alana's apartment building, the tone shifts, unease creeping back in. A neighbor steps forward to report hearing an argument in the hallway the night before Alana vanished. The documentary shifts from the neighbor's haunting statement to a colder, more investigative tone. Detectives review older CCTV footage, and the screen fills with an image recorded 3 weeks before Alana vanished. David stands in the dimly lit parking lot outside her workplace, pacing in slow, agitated loops. He checks his phone repeatedly, then stares toward the entrance doors as if expecting her at any moment. The narration explains that at the time, no one questioned this behavior. David was simply known as a protective boyfriend. But now, with hindsight sharpening every detail, his restlessness feels ominous. Text messages between them appear on screen, each one enlarging with a soft click. "Why didn't you answer? You know I worry," he wrote on a night she stayed late at work. Another message reads, "Next time, just tell me where you are." His words seem gentle at a glance, but the tone carries an unspoken pressure. The investigators note how Alana often responded with short reassurances, phrases that suggest she was trying to keep peace, not share freely. A coworker recalls a morning that suddenly makes sense in retrospect. Alana slipped into work with puffy eyes, claiming allergies. When pressed, she forced a smile and insisted everything was fine. But she looked shaken, the coworker says, voice cracking, like she was holding something back and didn't know how to let it out. The narration draws the parallels. These were the cracks, small, almost invisible to those around her, forming slowly under the surface. Early signs of control disguised as concern. Patterns overlooked. Behavior normalized. As the chapter nears its end, detectives sit in a dim briefing room, papers spread across the table, the tension heavy. They've discovered something new, something that changes the direction of the investigation entirely. Detectives obtain Alana's deleted phone messages, the ones David insisted she didn't need anymore. The chapter opens with investigators seated around a glowing laptop screen, the recovered deleted messages from Alana's phone still fresh in their minds. The discovery shifts their focus sharply toward David, prompting a deeper dive into his background. What they uncover begins to unravel the image he'd carefully crafted. Financial records reveal a trail of unpaid debts, credit cards maxed out in rapid succession, and withdrawal patterns that suggest panic rather than routine spending. Interviews with his coworkers add another layer. David often appeared composed, polite, the kind of man who blended easily into any room, but remained curiously distant, as if keeping everyone at arm's length. The narration contrasts this public version of David with his private digital life. Investigators retrieve browser history from his home computer, and the list is unsettling. Among mundane searches lie darker queries. How to know if your girlfriend is lying, apps to track someone without them knowing, and signs your partner is cheating even if they deny it. These searches paint the picture of a man wrestling with insecurity that mutated into something obsessive. Yet the documentary deliberately complicates the narrative with its first red herring. Late-night text exchanges between Alana and a coworker named Elliot surface, brief, soft messages that appear intimate at first glance. The filmmakers show blurred screenshots before slowly revealing their content. Elliot encouraging her to take care of herself, checking in after long shifts, offering support during days she seemed emotionally drained. Nothing romantic, nothing secretive. But the timing of the texts raises questions the audience can't yet dismiss. Friends of David describe him in ways that now feel contradictory. He was nice, one says, but a little unreadable. Another recalls how he rarely discussed his personal life, brushing off questions with polite smiles. These testimonies clash sharply with his clingy, monitoring behavior behind closed doors. As detectives piece together the inconsistencies, a troubling pattern emerges, one that pulls David further into the center of the investigation. Detectives discover that David lied about his whereabouts on the night Alana disappeared. The chapter opens with investigators confronting the first major lie David told about his whereabouts. That discovery acts as a turning point, prompting them to examine not just his actions, but his psychological patterns. As the narration shifts, the tone grows darker, more clinical. Experts describe how jealousy, when left unchecked, can evolve into something far more insidious. For David, it began subtly, asking harmless questions, requesting quick updates, expressing concern when Alana stayed late. But those early touches of insecurity eventually hardened into demands for constant reassurance, followed by monitoring disguised as care. The documentary cuts to Alana's saved voice notes, recovered from her cloud account. In one, her voice trembles slightly as she speaks. "Sometimes he looks at me like he's trying to read my thoughts. It scares me." In another, she whispers, "I keep telling myself he doesn't mean anything by it, but something feels wrong." These intimate confessions offer the clearest glimpse yet into her growing fear she hadn't fully admitted to anyone else. Investigators then turn to David's search history, which grows increasingly disturbing as the timeline approaches the week of her disappearance. Among innocuous queries about car maintenance and work schedules sits a chilling question. Can someone vanish without being traced? The narrator lets the words hang in silence before slowly fading them from the screen. But the documentary introduces a second red herring to keep the audience and investigators off balance. A witness from Alana's building reports seeing her in a heated argument with a woman in the hallway days before she vanished. The description is vague. Shoulder-length hair, dark jacket, raised voice. No name, no clear motive. Just an unexplained confrontation that widens the circle of suspicion. Despite this new lead, the investigation continues pulling back toward David as more evidence accumulates. Detectives gather paperwork from a hardware store, cross-checking dates. They uncover a receipt showing David purchased gloves, a plastic tarp, and cleaning supplies just 2 days before Alana disappeared. The discovery of David's suspicious purchases pushes investigators to fully reconstruct the final hours before Alana vanished. The chapter opens with a digital map glowing on a dark screen, phone tower data illuminating a path that traces both Alana's and David's movements throughout the night. The narrator explains how every call, every ping, forms a quiet trail of truth. At 1:48 a.m., Alana sends a text to her closest friend. "He's here. I didn't invite him." Her message appears in white letters across the screen, lingering long enough for its fear to settle into the audience's chest. From there, the timeline tightens. David admits he went to her apartment that night, claiming he wanted to talk things out. In his recorded interview, he insists she was calm, insisting nothing was wrong when he left. But his tone wavers, his gaze flicking downward, avoiding the detective's eyes at the exact moment he says, "She was fine." The narration contrasts his words with the growing list of inconsistencies, as experts dissect the behavior of someone whose emotional stability is deteriorating faster than he can disguise. Then the documentary cuts to a silent CCTV clip. At 2:17 a.m., David's car exits the apartment complex. Instead of leaving immediately, the vehicle circles the lot twice, headlights sweeping across empty pavement. The camera zooms in on the sharp, abrupt turns, movements investigators later describe as hesitant, uncertain, searching for something. When David finally drives off, the timestamp shows only minutes passed since Alana's phone went dark. Experts interviewed for the documentary explain how individuals in psychological crisis often oscillate between panic, rationalization, and desperate attempts to regain control. These patterns, they note, appear to match David's shifting statements and anxious digital footprints. The narration deepens the tension, suggesting that something inside him had already broken long before that night. But the consequences only became visible now. As investigators return to Alana's apartment to search for overlooked clues, the camera lingers on the quiet hallway where she was last heard arguing days earlier. The door opens, gloves snap, and forensic lights sweep across the room in cold, deliberate motions. Forensics uncover faint traces of bleach, but no signs of forced entry. The discovery of bleach traces in Alana's apartment draws investigators deeper into the darkest possibilities, and the documentary transitions into a quiet, somber reconstruction of the night she disappeared. The narration slows, almost reverent, as experts piece together the final confrontation. They describe how tension had been building for weeks. David's growing paranoia, Alana's increasing fear, their conversations becoming tighter, sharper, more fragile. Using phone records, text messages, and neighbors' statements, the filmmakers recreate the moment David showed up at her door uninvited. A soft reenactment plays, no faces shown, only silhouettes and muffled tones, capturing the escalation without depicting violence. The emotional narration fills in what investigators believe happened. Voices rising, fear turning to pleading, and David's internal turmoil finally tipping into something irreversible. Obsession doesn't erupt in a single moment, an expert explains. It accumulates, and then it crosses a line. The documentary amplifies the silence, the kind that follows a boundary being destroyed. No gore, no dramatic visuals, just the weight of what was lost, the life that should have continued, and the tragedy that now feels inevitable. Attention shifts to David's subsequent interviews with detectives. Early in the investigation, he appeared shaken but cooperative. Now, his demeanor has changed entirely. His answers become clipped, rehearsed, each sentence coded in practiced calm. When detectives ask whether he and Alana argued that night, he stiffens, jaw tightening. His eyes narrow slightly, just enough for the camera to catch the flicker. The narrator notes how his responses have grown defensive, almost cold, revealing the slow collapse of the persona he had worked so hard to maintain. Experts analyze his shifting tone. The distancing language, the small contradictions, the signs of someone attempting to manage a story rather than tell the truth. As David's mask continues to slip, the investigators' determination only intensifies. They press harder, searching deeper, convinced there is still something he's hiding. Their persistence pays off when digital forensics uncover one more clue. Buried, fragmented, but still recoverable. A piece of Alana's voice the world has not yet heard. Detectives recover a deleted voice memo from Alana, recorded minutes before she died. The recovered voice memo, raw with fear, sends investigators back into the timeline with renewed urgency. The transition into this chapter is immediate and sharp. David's version of events simply can't withstand scrutiny anymore. He claims he left town early for work, insisting he drove straight to a job site an hour away. But GPS data from his phone and car system shows something very different. At 3:02 a.m., less than an hour after he claimed to have left Alana's building, his location pings from a deserted park on the outskirts of town. The documentary cuts between maps, animated paths, and expert commentary. People forget their devices track more than just calls. A digital analyst explains. They track movement truth. The park is known for its dense trees, minimal lighting, and isolated trails. David offers no explanation for why he was there. His silence speaks louder than any excuse he might have manufactured. Investigators also examine his phone activity. A complete reset was performed the morning after Alana vanished. Contacts missing, texts erased, search history wiped. His car interior, usually cluttered, is found meticulously clean during a voluntary search. The narrator emphasizes the unnatural perfection of it. Too clean, one detective says plainly. Nobody washes their car at 5 a.m. unless they're hiding something. Further evidence emerges. Gas station receipts timestamped at 3:41 a.m. show purchases made near a remote woodland area, miles from David's supposed route to work. The camera zooms in on the printed total, the timestamp glowing like a warning. Every new detail tightens the circle around him. Meanwhile, the documentary clears the first red herring. Elliot, the coworker whose late-night texts initially sparked suspicion, is confirmed to have been out of state. Flight records and hotel logs proving his alibi. His involvement dissolves entirely, redirecting all attention back to David. The investigation shifts toward the wilderness hinted at by David's gas purchase. Search teams begin combing nearby trails, guided by digital breadcrumbs and instinct. A hiker reports finding a disturbed patch of soil deep in the woods. The next chapter opens with the investigation tightening around David, the tone carrying the same gathering gravity that closed the previous episode. As dawn breaks, forensic analysts deliver their findings with quiet certainty, each result slicing away what little remained of David's explanations. Soil collected from beneath Alana's balcony matches the dirt wedged deep in the treads of David's tires, a connection he can no longer deflect or dilute. Technicians then uncover tiny fibers, pale threads pulled from the hem of Alana's sweater, embedded in the felt lining of his trunk, an echo of a moment David refuses to describe. Surveillance footage from a dimly lit gas station adds yet another layer. David standing beside his car, furiously scrubbing his hands as though trying to erase some invisible confession. The camera captures his sleeve clinging damply to his wrist, a detail investigators replay with a slow, clinical precision that drains the last color from his narrative. When detectives confront him with the mounting contradictions, David's composure falters for the first time. His voice trembles, not with grief, but with the brittle fear of someone watching every scaffold of his story collapse. He tries to dispute the science, then the timeline, then his own earlier statements, but each effort lands weaker than the last. The investigator's questions sharpen, chipping away at the final defenses he clings to, until even he senses the inevitability pressing in. Then detectives reveal one final piece of digital evidence, a discovery so precise and irrefutable that the room seems to contract around him. The screen flickers on, displaying the timestamp he insisted could not exist, the data point that shatters his last remaining alibi. David leans back, eyes unfocused, the silence stretching until the investigators feel it tighten across the walls. It is in that fragile pause that the chapter draws toward its breaking point, the sense that something irreversible has just begun. Detectives cue up the final digital file, the revelation poised to collapse everything for good. The transition from the previous revelation is immediate. The digital evidence that shattered David's final alibi becomes the pressure point that finally breaks him. In the interrogation room, under the cold fluorescent hum that seems to spotlight every lie he has ever crafted, David leans forward and whispers the words detectives have been expecting yet dreading. He confesses. He claims it was an accident, a moment of panic, a night spiraling beyond control. But in the wake of the forensic trail, it sounds rehearsed, hollow, carefully shaped to mimic remorse rather than reveal truth. Investigators, however, are no longer working in the dark. A deeper search of his devices uncovers the twist no one foresaw. Hidden audio logs buried under layers of encrypted folders. Dozens of recordings, some scratchy, some chillingly crisp, capture private conversations between David and Alana. His voice steady, hers uneasy. He had been documenting her for months, studying her words, analyzing her tone, using each recording to feed a growing fixation. What he once described as love had long since curdled into obsession, and the discovery reframes everything the audience thought they knew. It was never sudden. It was never accidental. It was meticulous escalation disguised as devotion. As the truth spreads, families on both sides face an unbearable reckoning. The community mourns with a collective ache, vigils blooming along sidewalks and across social feeds. Media coverage erupts nationwide, turning Alana's name into both a headline and a movement. When the trial concludes, justice lands with decisive force. David is convicted on every major count, his carefully constructed narrative collapsing beneath the weight of his own recordings. In the long-term aftermath, Alana's legacy expands into advocacy for recognizing digital manipulation and covert surveillance. Her story becomes a catalyst, inspiring discussions about boundaries, consent, and the invisible dangers of technological control. The final image lingers. Alana's last voice memo, her frightened whisper echoing through the screen. "I just want to feel safe again." Your support helps us continue uncovering stories that matter to audiences around the world. For more shocking videos daily, subscribe to our channel and watch new updates every day.